Hey everybody, Justin here from the Hangfire podcast. Well, we've had Angry now for about a week. I thought it'd be good to see how well the song ranks with all the other lead singles they've put out in the past. I thought I'd go back to about 1989, which is really the start of their modern era, and to see, well, how does Angry rank with all those other songs? They've put out a lot of songs since then, about over 20 or so. So I'm going to see where they fall into place in terms of, well, my personal favorite. In fact, that's a disclaimer I'd like to put on this video, is that I'm ranking these based on my favorite, and the criteria I'm really using is which songs do I listen to the most. So this is absolutely my opinion in terms of my view. I will be objective as possible whenever I can, because I fully admit that sometimes there are actually some great songs here in terms of, what's written on paper. The lyrics, the themes, the composition itself is probably of better quality, but it just may not be a song that I particularly go back to often. On the flip side, I can notice when a song itself is not necessarily a good song in terms of its writing or its overall quality, but at the same time, the song may have some great performances in the recording. So, those two things are very different things, and both are valid things to critique. So wherever that's happening, I will definitely call that out as well. Your list may vary, and I invite you to create your own list. I've set up a Spotify playlist of these songs on this list, and I hope you go through them and follow along, and love to see your rankings as well. I also put up a YouTube playlist of the music videos for these singles, which is super fun to watch, and I hope you'll follow along and, participate, because I think it's a good reminder of what else the Stones have put out. And this new song, Angry, is a nice gateway to go back and rediscover some of that old stuff too. Some of that old new stuff for some people. Anyway, okay, let's get started. Okay, the bottom of my list is the song Biggest Mistake from A Bigger Bang from 2005. Yeah, this is generally a Mick song. It's a deeply personal song for Mick, and it just overall doesn't necessarily take off for me. It's a little bit flimsy in its production to me. It's just a little shapeless to me, although Keith apparently had a big hand in convincing Mick to lean into this stuff. I mean, Mick isn't one to really explore or broadcast these kind of emotions, and he would never specifically say, what the song was about or make any connections to anything. But when you look at the context of when the song came out, it was right after his divorce, his last divorce. But anyway, it's a song that is connected to some real stuff that apparently Mick very carefully admits, helped him through when he wrote this song. So on that regard, there's some validity in the song being very unique and special, but it's not one that I go back to. Next up, we have Sad, Sad, Sad from 1989's Steel Wheels, another Mick song that he wrote primarily. That's him on the opening riff on that song. And, it's pretty stock Stones riff, I would say. And it's just a bit one-dimensional for me. Great energy, which the song has going for itself. But aside from that, I think there are other songs that do a better job of presenting the Stones in a modern way. Next up, we have, again, from A Bigger Bang from 2005, the song Streets of Love, which, it's a fine enough song. The chorus is very hooky and catchy with that falsetto vocal from Mick, but the song as a whole isn't just one that I go back to often. Next up, we have from 1994's Voodoo Lounge, the song Out of Tears. This is a very strong piano ballad. I think it comes through very, very well, much more than Streets of Love does. I think Out of Tears has a little bit more of an authenticity to it. Mick's vocal is very strong with a very kind of heart-yearning kind of a delivery that comes through very, very well. And Ronnie has a great moment with some nice leads, especially in that solo section. But it's a very big sound, and it's got great dynamics, actually, because the first verses are, very small with Mick and just a piano, then it kind of builds and builds. So it's got great drama. So I admit it's one of their strongest later period songs, but it's just not one that I particularly come back to as much as others. So nevertheless, this one's a very good one. Next up from 2020, the song Living in a Ghost Town. Yeah, this one is hard to say. This could be more of a mix song, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a collaboration, or a product of another band jam, because it's kind of loose in its way. And I can sense that Keith is in the song, but very minimally. He adds these nice reggae licks to the beginning of the song, which is very much his bag. You know, the song came out during lockdown, so I mean, it's about all that. It really encapsulated all that we were experiencing, which was, what is going on? What is this now? I mean, life was beautiful. Now things are on lockdown and everything is a ghost town. So it really encapsulates that whole era really, really well. But you know, it's for some reason, even when the song came out, I wasn't necessarily over the moon with it. I was very happy to hear them put out something new. Charlie sounds fantastic on the track, so I think that's a fantastic thing. But again, this is just one that didn't take off for me. But it's a great production. It's got a nice punchy sound to it, which I always appreciated. Next up, again from 2005's A Bigger Bang, the song "Rain Fall Down." You know, it's actually one of his well-written lyrics. You know, it's the backdrop of London and just his disillusionment of the city itself and the direction it's going. And you know, it's a very tough song that you wouldn't necessarily discover when listening to it, because it's so funky. And that's the thing. That's what's really distracting about this song, is that in one way it could have been like a "Miss You" to me. There's another song on this list that I'll mention that as well, but it definitely has a dance feel, a funky vibe to it. But I doesn't have much of a center for me, at least, and it doesn't really take off. The ending sort of is a bit more dynamic, and it builds nicely, but it's just not one that I come back to as much as the others. Next up is from 1997's Bridges to Babylon, the song "Anybody Seen My Baby?" Yeah, so this song, I think, in another universe, really could have been a "Miss You," because the bass line is really there for a "Miss You" style kind of tightness, but it just never eventually coagulated that way, just like "Miss You" did. "Miss You" was just such a tight, straightforward vibe that it grabbed you. And "Anybody See My Baby" definitely has a groove to it, but it's a little bit more laid back, and it's just a little bit push and pull, so it doesn't necessarily grab you as much, but it's still very groovy in its way. This one has a little bit of a controversy, because while they were, actually after they recorded the song, they discovered, I think it was one of Keith's daughters that may have been listening to the recording, and they said, this sounds very close to Katie Lang's "Constant Craving." And they looked it up and they saw that there is a similarity there, and they worked it out, so Katie Lang was added to the list of songwriters. So it's technically Jagger, Richards, and Katie Lang there, just to kind of avoid any legal backlash on that. And yeah, you can totally hear that there is a little element there that moves in the same direction as part of the melody in the chorus of "Anybody See My Baby?" So it was probably a smart move to do that. The music video for the song is actually pretty cool. That's actually Angelina Jolie in the music video, and it was directed by the same director who did Nirvana's "Smells Like Teen Spirit." So it's a very stylized music video, and it's kind of gritty and dark, but very fun to watch. So that kind of helps the song a little bit. Next up, from 1991's Flashpoint, the song "Sex Drive." This is probably a mix song. It's hard to tell, really, because it's a very strong groove. Keith does have some pretty cool rhythm parts here. These kind of funky 7 chords that he plays. That is very exciting to listen to. It's very much a dance track, so it's not something that's supposed to change the world. But I appreciate the sound coming out of it. I mean, like I say, it's a very empty song in terms of its themes. You know, sex drive, it's all about that theme right there. So I think the band sounds great, and it's a great one to put on if you feel like moving around. So it is what it is. Next up, from 2012, the song "Doom and Gloom." Yep, this one's another mix song that he came up with. Mind you, my first exposure to this song was the remix version. That was the single that they first put out. That was actually the Jeff Basker mix. And I've always been a fan of that one. It's a very modern production. I think it's actually no Charlie on that remix. I think that one is a loop that Mick was working off of or added later. But that's the only minus of the song, is that it I don't think really has Charlie in a big way. But I think the song really has a lot going for it. Like, it's a great Mick vocal and, a pretty okay riff. It's finally something different from the usual suspended fourth open G thing. It's a kind of angular, bluesy kind of riff that kind of pushes the whole song through. If you look at the lyrics, there's some more textured stuff that Mick is talking about. This one kind of grapples with kind of more of that hopelessness with kind of the state of the world and, seeing things kind of crumble and deteriorate, and hence the term doom and gloom, of what they're seeing and, wondering what is the point of all this. So it connects to a little bit to some of the themes that Mick has been, singing about before, a little bit like Rainfall Down, another Mick song that we spoke about earlier, where there's a commentary on what he's seeing around him. All in all, the song is, I think, very good in what it's supposed to do, which is pump you up, give you an energy. For me, the Jeff Basker mix is the one that I've listened to the most. I know there's one that's the more stripped down band version that was on the Grr Greatest Hits compilation, which is pretty good. That is the most honest version of the song, I guess. Charlie is absolutely on there. And everything is pretty much intact from the remix version, but it's way more organic and raw, which is cool to listen to as well. But it just doesn't have the excitement and the polish and the texture like the Jeff Basker remix that is what I first heard when they first released it. So anyway, because of that, I think it's a great attempt for something modern and fresh, and I think it works very well. Next up, from the 1991 live album, the song Highwire. Here's another Mick song. That's him on the main rhythm guitar that kicks off the song, which for many years fooled me into thinking that was Keith. That's the only time where I've been fooled, where I mistook Mick for Keith. And I think it's a very good impression of Keith Richards. This song sounds fantastic. Everyone is just firing all cylinders. And it's another one of those, just like Rockin' a Heart plays. I guess Mick was in a certain mind frame, because this one is about the military-industrial complex and, the terrible things about war. Around that time, there was a lot of Desert Storm stuff happening, and it was obviously on Mick's mind. So, again, it's one of those interesting push and pull things where on the surface it comes off as a very, one-dimensional rock song, but what he's singing about, falls under the same, bucket as Street Fighting Man or Give Me Shelter or Under Cover of the Night, where, not so much Give Me Shelter, I guess, but Under Cover of the Night is very explicit about, the social commentary and the political commentary about, all the war crimes going on in South America and all those, heavy topics. These aren't topics that belong necessarily in a flashy, loud rock song or pop song, if you want to be even more simplified, So with that in mind, and Highwire is actually a performance where it's really in your face. The lyrics and the vocal is right here, and you can tell exactly what Mick is talking about. And anyway, it comes across very well. It's a very well put together song, and it's a very smart song. And it's one that I think most people forget because it appears on a live album. They tagged on 2 songs onto the Flashpoint live album. This one, Highwire, and the song Sex Drive, which we already spoke about. And people often forget that they exist, but yeah, they're very much singles off these albums. So I remind everyone to go check that one out. Next up, we have Mixed Emotions from 1989's Steel Wheels. This one seems to be a collaboration track, but primarily seems to have been driven by Keith. It's very much a Keith riff and vibe because there's just so much space in the song. The riff itself is it's not really a riff, it's him sliding up to that D. And, but, that's the beauty of Keith is that, if you were to write down, okay, how to play mixed emotions, slide up to that D chord in an open G tuning, and then you play it and you go, okay, and then what? No, that's the riff. It's all about how you do it and the body moves, in the way you do it. And there's a movement to that riff that I quite enjoy, and it's very, physical to me, that song. It's got a great groove. The band sounds great. Charlie sounds great. Bill Wyman sounds great. Yeah, everyone sounds fantastic on it, and it's a nice collaboration between Mick and Keith. The song really, I think, matches that mood of the time where mixed emotions about the whole thing. Are we moving forward with this? Let's put everything aside and just push forward and do what we do. That's what really the song's about. It's like, let's just keep moving forward, despite what may have happened. Well, this song is a bit odd because Mick really lands that vocal in the verses and stuff, but then you switch over to the chorus, and the chorus, Mick kind of dips down to a lower octave, and really Keith takes over and some of the background vocals, and that could be Mick also in the harmonies there, that's also pushing it. But the melody in the chorus, you kind of want to follow Keith on there, because Mick really kind of almost disappears. Yeah, as a song, it just moves very well, it grooves, and it's got a great energy and a great momentum throughout the song. So for a collaboration, I think it's one of their good ones. Next up, from just last week, 2023, the song Angry. This one sounds especially nice right after Mixed Emotions. Angry is another Mick-driven song. And what can you say about it? I mean, it's got a fantastic energy, fantastic attitude on the song. And, it tries to, and I think succeeds, to put together all the great things about the Stones, which is, flash and an attitude and a style, and all that comes through. And the song itself is a little bit mushy, in terms of its composition. It's not exactly a song that's going to change the world, but what it does do is give you this B12 shot of energy, which is undeniable, and you top that with other details like, this is fucking Mick Jagger at 80 years old, nailing this vocal down, and he's sounding great. So those things should outweigh some of the song's limitations, which I admit there are some. It takes me still a minute to kind of get into that. People are calling it a pre-chorus, but it's obviously the chorus. I mean, it's the hook part, in it, and it moves a bit strangely for me. Now, every time I listen to it, it takes me a minute to kind of get my bearings, But what else can you do? I mean, the song is very limited in melody, so having a little spice, even if it's a C sharp minor chord, like you find in that pre-chorus or chorus, needs to be there just to kind of keep things interesting. And so the song itself is a very strong one, especially for this period in the game for them. Here they are 61 years into the game as a band, and they put out something like that, which, again, not meant to change the world, but it's a fun one to put in the car, fun one to rock out to, and it's only rock and roll, So come on, give us a break. Next, from 2005's A Bigger Bang, the song Rough Justice. This one is a Keith song that he brought into these sessions. It's very much his riff, and not sure how much of the lyrics he put together. I would imagine it was mostly Mick who put the lyrics together, but it's a fantastic collaboration of Mick putting and finishing, bringing the song to the finish line based on what Keith started at the top with the riff and whatever melody he must have had. I think it's some of Mick's best vocal work in the modern age. I think he really just has this sleazy attitude in his vocal that even Keith said some good things about. He said, there was a quote around the time of this album where he said, when Mick can play it cool like he does on Rough Justice, there's no one better, there's nothing better, which I agree. There's something about this performance which is just funny and tongue-in-cheek, and it's your classic rock and roll song. So nothing really here that's going to challenge their original greatest stuff, and for my money, it has one of their best outros ever. You've heard me talk about outros a lot of times on this channel, and this one has one of my favorite ones. Ronnie has some great parts on the slide that really just explodes through, and the whole end of the song is this fantastic jam of chaos of all these sounds, and this to me is one of their best outros. Not one of their best written songs, but it's a great performance, which needs to be differentiated. And next we have from 1994's Voodoo Lounge, the song I Go Wild. And here's a song that was primarily written by Mick that he brought into the sessions. And, I have to admit that this song isn't exactly the best song in the world, but I am very much lured in by the performances on this recording because I think everyone sounds great, especially Charlie. Charlie sounds fantastic on this track. He is got this huge, booming, thunderous sound. And I'll have to check, but this could have been one of the songs that he recorded in the infamous Stairwell when they were recording Voodoo Lounge. I know for sure that two other songs were recorded in the Stairwell that produced a very large sound for Charlie. But anyway, this song has that, which is very exciting to listen to. And this song is just guitar fest all over. It's just guitars everywhere. So, again, not the best song on paper, but it really just infuses and punches you in the face with all this energy, and you just want to rock out. It's just a classic rock song. It's, stadium rock ready. What can you say? But to me, it's undeniable that it's just a fun song to listen to, and some pretty cutting lyrics by Mick. And really, I'm just bowled over by the performances on it. And Mick really delivers a great vocal here, which is really cool. And Keith is present in it with some open G stuff too. I think Mick is also an open G, so it's really just double attack of open G stuff. Anyway, this is, again, nothing that's going to change the world, but a fun-ass track. Next up, from 1989 Steel Wheels, the song Rockin' a Hard Place. Okay, here's another Mick song that he primarily wrote. The song's got a great energy. It absolutely grabs you from the moment it comes on. On the surface, it comes off as a very one-dimensional kind of, rock song. But when you look under the hood and look at the lyrics, it's actually very thought-provoking, complex ideas. There's a social commentary here about poverty and political corruption and war and just this hopelessness to see things are going wrong, but unable and hopeless to make changes about it. Thus the Rockin' a Hard Place theme. The song itself is actually, a challenging one. It's not one that you would imagine would be the subject matter of a single to an album, but I think for those reasons, it's a strong song, and I think should be appreciated for more than what on the surface it comes off as, which is you think it's just going to be this flimsy, big rock song. But actually it has something to say. Keith doesn't really come through in this recording as much, especially because Mick, again, takes the guitar reins here, and he takes the main riff that kicks off the song. So with Mick driving that rhythm, that really leaves Keith to have to find other spaces for himself. And he adds these really cool reggae, I call them scratches. They're just little textured rubs on the strings and notes that really bubble up throughout the song. And it adds a nice little texture to the song. It's not a huge part, but it does provide something that tickles the ear. So keep an ear out for that. Overall, I would say this is a strong product. The band sounds great, and Mick delivers some pretty cool vocals for a song that has a very kind of wordy, dense lyric ideas. So for that, I think it should be looked at and, remembered as one of the good ones. Okay, next up we have from 1989 Steel Wheels, the song Terrifying. Okay, here's another Mick-driven song. Okay, right off the top, I fully admit that this song is by no means, a masterpiece. So, with that being said, I love this song. It's just, it gets you in the bones. It's a great vibe. It's a great, very minimalist riff. Such a small little riff, but it hypnotizes you and grabs you for the whole song. And actually, I like the lyrics here. Mick is using a lot of analogies and imagery and a lot of animals in the lyrics, which makes it very provocative and very interesting. Actually, I think he's really what anchors the song for me is that his delivery is makes you want to lean in. It's a very strong performance, and I think that to me is what has always kind of attracted me to this song, was that Mick really is a centerpiece here. And when he locks in vocally with Charlie and Bill on the bass, it's just a nice little sandwich. It's a classic Stones sandwich where, like I said, it's not a complex masterpiece, but it just gets me moving every time I listen to it, which, what's the crime in that? So with that being said, I fully admit that this song is not up there with the greats, but for me, if you were to look on my Spotify account, you'd see that it's one of my most played songs. So that doesn't say much, but anyway, full disclosure on that. Next up, from 1997's Bridges to Babylon, the song Saint of Me. This one is another Mick-driven song, and I love this one because it's got some great vocals, great production. For some people, a little too much of a modern production, which that's never scared me. When it comes to the Stones, people always have expectations about the Stones. They always want them to sound like some other version of them that they've heard in the past. And if there's anything you can guarantee is that Stones will constantly challenge you on what you should, quote, expect from them. So this song came from an album that apparently rubbed people the wrong way. Anyway, the song itself is, I'd say, one of Mick's great lyrics. He's really tackling a very interesting angle here. I mean, he hasn't been in the religious realm like this, I'd say, since maybe Sympathy for the Devil, where he's really going in deep with, biblical themes and biblical imagery and, actually, listing, biblical figures like he does here, John the Baptist and other characters. Actually, I love just how crisp this song sounds. And surprisingly, Keith is not on this track at all. And it's actually Waddy Wachtel who comes in and kind of doubles up on some of those Keith-flavored vibes. But he does a very tasteful job on this recording, actually. And, who knows why Keith wasn't involved here. This was actually probably one of the few songs that on this album where they had two rooms in the same studio going simultaneously to get the album done. They found that they worked smoother and quicker if they had several studios going at the same time to get songs off their feet. And they would run between studios to kind of work on this part of the song on one part of the day and then run over to the other part of the song for another song in another studio. And so they had kind of separate stations going in the same complex. They were recording this at Ocean Way Studios. At the time, it was called Ocean Way in Los Angeles. Anyway, so this song to me, I think, very much would stem more from a Mick vibe, but I think Charlie sounds great on it. I think Ronnie also sounds very good. He has this great solo in the middle. And I think the song really kind of begins to take off right after that solo. Things start to gel a little bit more, and Mick heightens the drama a bit with a very strong vocal that's very dramatic, and Charlie also kind of meets Mick at that point, and they kind of ride the song out. And I think it's a very dynamic song, and it sounds great. And I think one of Mick's best efforts. Okay, we're in the home stretch, aren't we? So this is from 1994's Voodoo Lounge, the song You Got Me Rocking. So anyway, this is a Keith-driven song that he brought to the table that I learned recently that he said that he wrote originally on piano. In fact, he said a very Little Richard vibe originally on piano when he wrote it, which is a fascinating thought. I would love to hear a demo of that. But anyway, he took that germ of an idea and he brought it to the band. And like often he's explained, you think you have a handle on a song when you write it by yourself, but when you bring it to your band, it turns into something else, as it should. And it turns into this incredible sound on this recording, which I fully admit this song is not meant to change the world and not a complex song by any means. It's a pretty dumb stadium rock ready song that is 100% one dimensional, but sorry, it packs a huge punch. It's a huge infusion of energy and really just pumps you up. And it's a big sound. And, even though the song, as a song, it suffers because it's kind of, weak, the performances are fantastic because everyone comes through very, very well. Literally, Charlie kicks it off with this huge drum sound that this was one of the songs that I mentioned earlier was recorded in a stairwell. They did a lot of experimenting on Voodoo Lounge. And one of the things that they were trying was, how do we kind of offer different sounds for Charlie? And one of the things that they discovered was they had a huge sound come through when they would put Charlie's drums in the stairwell in the studio they were working at. And it produced this humongous, thunderous sound. And that's the sound on this track. So Charlie comes through extremely well, and he's just playing very, very well, super tight, and just a great snap to his sound. Don was, and the engineers worked really hard and great to give him a very good sound on this album, and this one is really a showcase for Charlie. Keith is also a wonderful positive on the track with his open G tuning, with a super simple riff, but he's chugging along, giving the song all this energy, and everyone just falls into place and matches everyone's energy. The energy's all up. Ronnie comes through with this kick-ass slide on a classic Ronnie Wood kind of slide, and his solo at the end is just spiky, and it's just this full-on attack. And by the song's end, you're just, at this party, and you don't want it to end, really. And anyway, this is just one of those songs where it's not a great song, but it's a damn good performance by the band. And there's a huge difference to be made and in those two criteria. So I have to admit that it's not necessarily a song that would deserve to be on a top 10 list of the best songs of the Stones in this modern age, but damn, it always does the job whenever I put it on. So, your mileage may vary. I completely understand. So don't take me too seriously on this ranking. It's just my personal favorite. This may fall much lower on your list, but I have to remind everyone that there are some good moments in the song, despite the song itself. So anyway, check it out. Next up, from 2002, from the 40 Licks compilation, the song Don't Stop. So here's another Mick-driven song that he brought to the sessions. And, again, it's one of those where from the sound of it, it sounds your typical Stones by the numbers, I guess, but I think it's a fantastic moment for the band. I think everyone contributes their strengths to the band. And even though it's one of Mick's songs and he really drives the song with, his guitar part, which really drives the song, there is still a space for Keith. And that's rare sometimes with these Mick-driven songs because Mick will take the reins on the guitar, like you've heard me talk about, and there isn't much of a space for Keith to get in there, especially if the guitar part that Mick designed is the main riff. Mick will often take it for himself to do and would have to give Keith to find another angle to come in on. And on Don't Stop, although Mick drives it with... it's like two riffs going on, really, because Mick is driving it with the main riff, which is a version that's suspended fourth again. But Keith comes in with this little slide on it that's just a small element of the type of slide that he would do on Tuble and Dice, but he just kind of cuts it in half and just does it on the come down of that riff. And it adds a nice, what he calls fairy dust or a magic touch to the song that really makes his contribution, very subtle, very effective too. And so after that, the rest of the dominoes fall. I mean, Charlie sounds great. Ronnie delivers one of his best solos ever, in my opinion, on this song. It's just a classic Ronnie Wood sound. It just slices through the sound, and I don't know if he's on the strat for this song, but it's a classic 70s sound to me, where he comes through a very melodic and very full-bodied solo, and that's just a cherry on top. Also, I don't even mind the bridge on this song. Most of the time with these Mick songs, the bridges are very, sometimes you just go like, okay, nice try, but it just doesn't work. Let's go back to the main song. I can't say the Stones are the best at middle eights. So, but nevertheless, I think it works very well here. It's a nice, offshoot to the song, and by the time you get back in, it's very natural. And I can't say that always works with the Stones, at least in the modern era. That outro is fantastic. Everyone is jamming, and Ronnie's coming right back in with some more guitar work, and you can tell Charlie lifts it up again, and Keith is just chugging out on those chords. Mick is just letting it out on the microphone. It's an all-out attack from all sides, and it's just irresistible to me. Next up, from 1989's Steel Wheels album, the song Almost Hear You Sigh. Okay, this one is just hands down, flat out, one of their best ballads ever. I don't care what year you're talking about, what era, what guitar player was in the band, all that bullshit. This song is just one of their great ones. This is a Keith song that he brought to the table, and he's often labeled it as a cousin to Beast of Burden. And you can kind of tell it has that flair to it. It's got that vibe on the guitar where it's this slight Curtis Mayfield sort of attack on the guitar that's just smooth and very laid back, but also purposeful. And it's a very soulful track, and everyone shines through on this song. Charlie, from the minute the song hits, really dictates the vibe of the song, which is super laid back and stylish, which is who Charlie was. He was super laid back, incredibly stylish in every way, not just literally his fashion, but the way he played was very stylized and had a great pizzazz to it, with it being very also completely tailored and to the T and meticulous. And Charlie comes through very strong here, and Mick delivers a very tender and sensitive vocal here that is just lovely. It's just got a great dynamic to it, great feel, and yeah, it's just one of their best ballads. It's up there with all the big ones, in my opinion, and this is a favorite for anyone who was there to have heard it, but it got lost in the mix. There were so many other songs, and as you know, the Stones catalog is so huge that some things get pushed aside, and I invite everyone to go back and re-listen to this song and, reincorporate it back into the mix, because this needs to be in any Stones diet. It's one of their best songs from the later years, hands down, but it's just one of their best songs, period. So anyway, go check that one out. And finally, the number one spot in my list, I'm putting Love Is Strong from 1994's Voodoo Lounge. This is a Keith song all the way. In fact, you could make a connection to the song on his solo album that came out right before Voodoo Lounge, the song Wicked As It Seems. That opening riff, which is going from the G to the A in an open G tuning, is very much similar to what's going on in Love Is Strong. I think I remember reading that Mick and Keith, when they were writing songs for the album, Mick may have mentioned that he really enjoyed Wicked As It Seems from Keith's solo album, and that may have been the what set off the Love Is Strong song. But anyway, in terms of modern songs and the Stones trying to stay in the game, stay modern, stay fresh, offer something that's familiar but also going in new places, I think that's this song, Love Is Strong. From the moment it starts up, you're just starting with all the pieces of what makes the Stones great. You've got Charlie kicking it off with a great drum fill that eventually stabilizes the song with his great groove. Then you've got Keith come in right after that, followed by Mick on harmonica, and you're off and running. And this song offers something different because Mick is singing in a few different registers, so a lot of great vocal dynamics here. He's really singing at his low end of his range, and it's this raspy, kind of dark, very textured, moody vocal, and then he kind of lets it all out during the chorus. So great dynamics, and the band really pushes and pulls on all that energy, and I think it works extremely well. The whole song has a vibe to it. It's got this sleazy attitude and very kind of slick and cool and laid back sound, especially during the verses, but then the choruses are your big moments of explosions. And Ronnie comes through with this very high energy, high attack work on the guitar during those choruses. And yeah, everyone just sounds great on it. And I think the lyrics are extremely sharp, I think. And, Mick's vocal delivery is just really what centers the song for me. And so I really love all the elements of the song come together, really. And like I said, to me, out of all the songs on this list, I think Love is Strong succeeds the best at putting together something familiar and something new for the Stones. And I think in 1994, this was the apex of really putting together those two combinations, and it turned out to be, for me, a winning combination. Again, your mileage may vary, but I think at the very least this song is an absolute top 10 song. It may be in different spots on everyone's list, but I think it's one that effectively does the job. And the cherry on top is the music video for this song. The music video was directed by none other than David Fincher. Yeah, the David Fincher, one of the best directors still. And he directed this video, which is super creative and super fun to watch. I love watching this video. I think it's one of their best music videos. And I think it's a great premise of these giant stones kind of attacking New York City like Godzilla or something, these giants. And, it's not exactly subtle. So anyway, that one always falls under the radar, but that's one I think everyone should take a look at again. Okay, so that was my list. That was a lot of fun. I thought it would be good to kind of put this together because now that everyone is sort of, reinvigorated by the Stones because of the new song Angry that came out last week, well, there's a lot more where that came from. And I think people would have a good time going back and rediscovering or discovering for the first time some of these songs that, if you thought Angry was good, there are other songs that are as good, if not better than that people have forgotten about. So anyway, I hope this list will do just that, bring you back to rediscover some of those songs that may have fallen by the wayside. Anyway, would love to see your rankings, love to see your list. Put them in the comments below. I'd love to see them. Thanks for watching Hangfire. We'll see you next time.